All right. So we are going to get kicked off here. Would love to just formally welcome everyone to today's webinar. My name is Mike Kaput. I'm the Chief Content Officer at Marketing AI Institute, the host of today's webinar. And I'm joined today by a couple incredible marketing and business leaders who are going to walk us through everything we kind of need to know to start making AI our co-pilot in our content marketing, and specifically the skeptics among us. Because let's be honest, as much as I love AI, we all find value in AI, we're all a little skeptical at times of the hype and the conversation that sometimes happens around AI. But thankfully, our two experts are going to cut through the noise for us today. We've got with us Lindsay Chepkema, the CEO and co-founder of Casted, and Adam Paterino, the CTO and co-founder of Casted. Casted is very well positioned to talk about this topic because the company has an AI tool that helps you create the right content faster and figure out who's engaging with that content. Now, in a moment, I'm going to turn it over to Lindsay and Adam to take us down the path of learning how to use AI as our content co-pilot. But before I do, I want to give you all a couple housekeeping items that are important to keep in mind as we go. Now, first, the webinar recording will be provided to you after the webinar. We'll email this out on demand to everyone who signed up, typically about 24 hours after the webinar. So if you missed anything or have to jump early, don't worry. We will send out the recording of this full session. Second, if you have questions for Lindsay and Adam, please drop them in the chat or in the Q&A section at the bottom of the screen. Our team is monitoring the questions, and we will get to as many of them as we can at the end of the webinar when we do a bit of Q&A and sort of fireside chat conversation between Lindsay, Adam, and myself. So at any time, feel free to drop in your questions. Now, we have plenty of people here who have attended one or many of our webinars, but we also have a lot of new audience members. So I just wanted to take a quick second to introduce Marketing AI Institute and what we do if you're new to the audience. So we are an industry-leading media, event, and education company, and we have been making AI approachable and actionable for marketing and business leaders since way back in 2016, so well before kind of our current explosion of generative AI tools. And we do this in a few big ways. So our website and our podcast, which kind of form the bulk of our media arm, reach hundreds of thousands of people each year with a ton of different content, including blogs, webinars like this one, and our weekly newsletter. Our virtual and in-person events, including our Marketing AI conference that happens every year, reach thousands of people and bring together a huge network of forward-thinking marketers and business leaders who are all trying to figure out AI together. And our online education has been used by thousands of different learners, including leaders at some of the top brands on the planet, to learn how to apply AI to their businesses. That includes things like our free Intro to AI live online class and our paid Piloting AI course. So one more thing I'd like to leave you with before I turn it over to Lindsay and Adam. If you wouldn't mind moving the slide forward just one more here. If you are looking to take the next substantial step on your AI journey as marketer, business person, business owner, that next step I would highly recommend be joining us at the Marketing AI Conference, or MACON. MACON is our annual in-person conference that brings together all of these professionals from all over the world who are looking to learn how to best build a competitive advantage in their career and their companies using artificial intelligence. We bring everyone together to not only learn, but share knowledge and advance together with AI by forming lifelong connections at this event. We've done this event many years in a row. Last year's event had over 700 people join us in person, and we're expecting probably double that this year. So head over to macon.ai to learn more about what we've got in store for this year. And if you are buying a ticket, use the code webinar100 to get $100 off. I should also note pricing does go up tomorrow. So now is actually the perfect time to get your Maycon ticket at the lowest price possible. Now, that's enough from me. Let's get to the good stuff. Lindsay and Adam, take us away.
Right. Well, as Mike mentioned, my name is Lindsay Chepkema. Well done on the last name, by the way. That was flawless. Adam and I are here to go through, this is the agenda of some of the things that we'll cover. But specifically, since we're talking about this being, the skeptic's guide, marketing skeptics about AI, I'm excited to be here because Adam and I take two very different angles on this topic. He is the tech brain, he is the technical co-founder, and I am the 20-year B2B content brand creative centric marketer. So when we started this company 5 years ago, and as we started to approach AI, many, many months ago, there were conversations about how do we do this right? How do we do this well? And it was really, really important to me and to us about how do we not just incorporate AI for the sake of AI, and how do we approach AI well? And I think it's probably safe to say I've been a skeptic. There's a whole lot of art in B2B marketing. There's a whole lot of art in content creation, and humanness really, really matters. So I think that we're going to, and Adam, I know, has never really opposed me on that, but has been much more excited and eager to really adopt AI. And I think that many of you are probably in very similar camps as to one or both of us. So some of the things that we're going to go through is the promise. Like, what can we all be excited about? What are we all hopeful for when it comes to AI and content marketing? I think that we all know that there's a whole lot of hype, especially around AI generated content. And we're going to talk about some of our predictions. We're going to talk about how to make AI, specifically your content Copilot. That's a word that I've heard used, obviously, in and around AI, but that Adam and I really have taken the stance. I think that's a right term to use. It's not to replace you, but it is absolutely to kind of help you fly right along with your own instincts and abilities, what it should do, what it shouldn't do. And then we're going to get into a lot of Q&A. It was important to all of us, Mike included, that we spend some time really in conversations answering questions, because this absolutely is not a one-way conversation, but we want to get into the fears, concerns, excitement, and enthusiasm around AI. That's what we're going to get into today. And as we get started, Caston did a report, a study not too long ago that asked marketers a whole bunch of questions, B2B marketers specifically. And one of the stats that stood out to me and to all of us at Caston was something that I've experienced as a content marketer. I guess it was good to see it wasn't just me, that marketers in general told us that they spend the vast majority of their time, 33 hours on average, every single week, creating net new content, which is insane because that leaves very little time to do literally everything else, right? So kind of comes as no surprise that as AI, especially generative AI, has emerged onto the scene, that there is so much hope and in some desperation and excitement about AI making that content perform better and to take some of the burden, to reduce some of those 33 hours of content creation among marketers, to say, like, how can I do this faster and how can I help it perform better? So when we see stats like this about more than half of marketers that are using generative AI to create content, saying that they hope it makes them perform better, I'm curious about that. I'm curious if their hope is placed in the right place, if they're thinking of it the right way, if they're saying, hey, if I press this button, is my content going to perform better? Or if it's more of an efficiency thing where if I leverage this generative AI to create more content or create different content, will it help me as a co-pilot to have this content perform better? And so I'm curious, actually, in the comment section, if this aligns with you, or if you're like, no, that's not what I want at all. If you are using generative AI for content creation, what is your hope? What do you think is the top benefit? Is it increased performance? Is it something else? Is it efficiency? I'm really curious there, and then maybe we can kind of come back to it at the end of the session. There's a lot to unpack in this step. Okay. There's a lot of buzz, to say the least, right? Um, some of the things that we've noticed, and I'm sure you have too, is that when it comes to AI, highly personalized content experiences um, feel cherished, not just consumed, right? So we there's this thought that AI can make content feel dehumanized, and there's a lot of concern about like how do I use it to really connect with people on a human to human level and not just create content that's transactional, right? Um, Another one is consistent and efficient content creation processes. I think that one's a gimme. As we see generative AI and other forms of AI come in to support content marketers, obviously content creation processes and practices and procedures and workflows can become more effective and more efficient. Um, so there's a lot to get into there. Also, analyzing search trends and keywords faster than you can say SEO. Um, as more and more tools emerge to be able to say what are people consuming, how many people, I want to see another thing in chat, how many people actually have done over the last several years, over the last decade or two, keyword research and gone down different rabbit holes and tried to do that manually and are having their lives completely changed by some of the tools that are available now to automate that and leverage AI to make some of those recommendations in ways that we used to do so manually. I've been there. So it's interesting to see some of the trends emerge and some of the tools emerge that can actually make that more science than has been art, and deliver results so much faster. Um, Also, no more guesswork, right? So AI algorithms streamline A/B testing. A/B testing has been uh, something that I think a lot of us love and a lot of us love to hate. But it's streamlining A/B testing. It's giving us a lot more options in how to and what to do with data that is so much more readily available, easily available, more faster available. So, Adam, is there anything that you would want to add to any of these from your perspective?
Yeah, I think one of the exciting parts of AI is, especially as marketers, we're creative, we have really great imaginations. And part of the buzz is around the unknown potential, right? Here's are some specific examples, but I think a lot of people are talking about it. It's such a big part of our zeitgeist because of where it could go, things that it could improve, things that it could solve for. And especially with our imaginations and sometimes lack of understanding of really what's happening underneath or inside the black box, our imaginations allow us to fill in a lot of the can you imagine ifs.
Mhm.
So at any point we're in a current point in time, and we see what AI is capable of doing today, but that's changing every day, right? So a lot of the big buzz is just how new everything can be and how fast it's changing. So it's an exciting industry to be in. It's an exciting topic to keep front of mind as we as marketers look for ways to improve and drive more value for the business.
Right. And with that comes a lot of fear, excitement, and fear, right? So, one of the things we're going to get into from our perspective is pros and cons. So Adam's going to talk through, since he's probably the less skeptical one and has been like, yeah, let's get into it. What do you see, and like what are some of the things that you would look at as far as pros of AI specifically to content marketing?
Yeah. So thinking about framing these pros, right? Um, Many of you, I assume, if you're here and you've joined, you have at least dabbled in AI and may have come away kind of skeptical. You might have been unimpressed with its ability to think as creatively as you are. But there are things that I think AI needs to have its place in. If we ask AI to replace us as marketers, it's going to fail pretty extremely, at least for now, which is a
Regardless
very
of what
good
the world
thing.
tells you, it's not going to take your job.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. If you're worried about your job, ask it to do something complicated. Ask it to assess how your KPIs are trending. Ask it to give an idea to your boss about what is the most effective thing to connect with your audience. And it'll come up with some generic stuff, but not necessarily things that are really tied to um, what makes your business and what makes you as a human unique. So that being said, thinking about what does make AI really strong, again, is positioning it next to you as an assistant. So one of the things, and even if you just scan through the chat, if you've been paying attention, some of the most effective thing or one of the best places that you can bring AI is into the brainstorming process. So thinking about how do we create our content with AI, giving us ideas or maybe outlines, taking some of the initial uh, empty sheet of paper anxiety away and giving our brains a chance to start digging in on something and use our creativity. Um, the way that I like to frame AI in a lot of cases beyond that is think about things that require computational amount or a large data set or a uh, difficult, tedious set of steps. This is where machines have always been better, and AI shows no difference there. I heard a really interesting quote from someone talking about AI that was like, "We're all so impressed with how well these large language models understand language." And if you peel back and understand how large language models work, you realize that they've had to be trained on nearly the entire internet worth of language. And let's just take English, for example. To learn English, it had to take literally the entire internet to start to understand and be able to give us a suggestion that it understands English. In the human mind, we can learn maybe a foreign language with a lot less examples, right? With maybe an app on your phone, you can learn some of the basics of a language, and within a few days being in a country, you can really start to pick up on that language pretty quickly. So the human mind is incredibly elastic and much more powerful than I think what we give it credit for, especially compared to how much data is required for AIs to be effective. Again, tie that now into pros, right? Things that go really well. SEO is very data heavy. It's something that, with enough examples, the human mind can start to stretch to, but AI has the ability to gather way more and then automate that process for us. Same thing when
And
it
pivot
comes to
as it
data.
evolves too.
Exactly,
Mhm.
exactly, and watch for changes and trends, um, things like measuring effectiveness. So I would, instead of reading all these things to you, definitely look at them, think about how they apply to your business. But also, as you're approaching new technology that maybe your company's looking at buying, or you're thinking about how do I add AI into my business to improve my workflows, think about it that way. Think about that there are there are tasks that require a ton of data to be good at, and that's where you should be applying AI. And then the places where creativity is required, there's definitely a strong blend towards bringing a human in.
All right. When there's pros, there's also cons. So thinking also, kind of coming from the same place that Adam was talking through, is I the the thing that gets under my skin so quickly is starting to see AI replacing like the entirety of the creation process instead of a human. So who else is really annoyed with the all of the AI generated like LinkedIn comments. So probably I'm like getting too close for some people because they're like, wait, I use those. Um, I mean, you get a comment from me on LinkedIn, it's me. If I say loved your post and that's all I posted, that's me actually posting a really crummy, not very well thought out comment. But I do it because it's me. It's a human to human connection. So what we're starting to see and what makes me nervous, and I hope that it makes everybody on this call nervous too, is the threat, the risk of losing, human connection, human creativity, and just authentic interactions. Right? There are times and places for AI, and that's not what this whole webinar is about. But there are many instances where AI interactions are great. They're fast, they're efficient, they're effective, they're transactional. But when there is an opportunity, a moment for you as a representation of your brand, whether that's your personal brand or your company's brand, or both, you have an opportunity, you have a chance to actually be authentic and authentically represent who you are and create a connection. And I was actually on podcast earlier this morning, and we were talking about how human connection and relationships, when you actually know someone, all of us here, every single one of us on this webinar today has this in common and could go to each other's LinkedIn pages and say, hey, I really enjoyed being on that webinar with you today. What did you get out of it? Or we could automate it with AI. We have that choice. And just because you can doesn't mean you should. And so one of the cons is choosing the wrong things to AI, to leverage AI. And I think that as humans, we really have to be careful, cautious, intentional about where we use it. And also to say, what if I leverage AI to be more efficient and effective in these areas so that I free up a little bit more time to have real authentic comments on LinkedIn, to have real effective, um, authentic human conversations with people in other ways while I'm automating these more tactical, technical, transactional conversations, right? Um, Redundancy. So something that I know is not a new thought, but it's worth mentioning here is that AI generated content comes from a pool of information, right? So plagiarism, bias, redundancy. It's because it's all coming from a pool of ingredients that already exist, right? It's cooking with what it's already got. And so, yeah, that also, while that draws down the inability to be rich, authentic, original, and creative, it also makes for a lot of bland, repetitive, leftover tasting, reheated content. Even if it's super great and your prompt is cool and it makes it seem really human, it's still drawing on information that already exists. And so, what Adam mentioned earlier, using your brain to have like conversations and net new content that can only come from you. So, your greatest ability to reduce risks of redundancy, blandness, repetitiveness, plagiarism, accidentally being a little too lenient, too casual with how you're leveraging AI and accidentally stepping on the toes of someone else whose content that you've just lifted because you used AI to pull together some new information. That's a risk that doesn't happen when you literally create content out of your brain. Um, and then obviously inaccuracies and bias, right? When you're putting your trust into AI, you've got to take the time at the very least. Like, don't think it's going to save you so much time that you can just create and go. You've got to check. You've got to fact check. You've got to cross check. There are where some people are nervous about jobs going away. New jobs are emerging, and we're seeing new roles of um, checking for bias. I know somebody who wrote a book and had a specific editor, read it for, this is an AI, but read it for bias, because it's super, super important. I think that we're going to see even more of that with AI to make sure that what is being created is not pulling from a pool of information that is in and of itself biased. So again, all of these things as we leverage AI, because it's here, it's important, it is a part of our future, to say, how do I use AI and different tools and different tech to be more authentic, to be more creative, to be more rich and original, and to free up time to do those things and have the interactions that matter, not to replace them. Ultimately, I gave this slide one all in and of itself because this is my big gripe. Um, there is so much content. For 20 years, we have been talking about cutting through the noise, because it was just, wow, more and more blogs. And then it was, wow, there's more and more internet content. And then it's, wow, there's more and more podcast content, more and more videos. Well, there is so much content now. And with the emergence of generative AI, I'm just preaching to the choir. We all know this. There is so much noise, even just in comment sections now, that by any one of us that's on this webinar right now, leveraging generative AI to create more, we have to be careful to really ask ourselves, am I adding value or am I adding to the noise? Really ask yourself that, because we are in a time of a whole lot of fear and scarcity. We're in a time of do more with less. And there is such an urge and a temptation and sometimes a pressure to just create more. And AI can often feel like the answer. But before you hit publish, before you hit send, before you hit submit, really ask yourself again, am I adding value or am I adding to the noise? All right. So with that, we're going to get into some predictions. Something that we kind of got into a little bit was video. Video is in and of itself very, very human. We're all here right now, ultimately creating a video, right? That's one of the big takeaways. Um, Sharing our thoughts, sharing our voices, sharing our experiences. Because as a yes, as a company and Earth as the world, humanity is in a video era, and it's because it's so human, it's so rich, and sure, there are ways that AI can create exactly what we're doing right now, but ultimately, it's these real human interactions that are what is going to win for each and every brand that prioritizes such human interactions. Anything else you want to get into, Adam? I know I'm going to hand it over to you.
No, yeah, I think that's a great setup. So we at Casted are big believers in video. We started out as a podcasting company back in 2019 and almost immediately realized the need to incorporate video, especially as the pandemic came around and all of us were starved for seeing other people's faces rather than, outside of our bubbles. And I think that that trend has continued. If you look at the popularity of TikTok and its influence on the rest of social media, Instagram has adopted Reels. YouTube has really pushed Shorts. And those platforms and that format has become extremely popular around the world for a reason. Yes, it is definitely shortening all of our attention spans, which is hard. But it's also giving us many interactions where we get to see other people's experiences in an authentic way. And I think that is something that AI cannot take away from us as people and marketers. Now, I am sure about to drop into the comments is AI video is looking more and more awesome every day. And that's true. But I think you're going to run into the exact same type of situation that we've always had, which is stock photography, stock video is an option when creating marketing materials, but nothing really replaces authentically putting your team, your face, a real person with real thoughts, really going through something into your marketing material. Lindsay hit on something that I think is really critical to focus on that we at Casa think a lot about, which is how are you creating value for your audience? And there are a lot of situations where using AI generated content is a really powerful way to create value for them. But more often than not, the value is going to come from hearing a genuinely thought of, genuinely spoken and shared idea from another person that you can ingest, think about, change your worldview, share back to them with a different interpretation or a refinement or a debate and between multiple people, you're going to see more and more development of an idea, I think, in a lot faster way. We talk about this like echo chamber of robots talking to robots. And ultimately, we think that video is a really strong way for us as marketers to be able to create content that will authentically connect with our audience, have an impact on them, stand out from the crowd, and participate in a conversation that our audience wants to hear from. So let's talk about exactly how Casted helps you do that. If you don't know, Casted, like we mentioned, started in the podcasting space and quickly grew into all types of video. So podcasting, webinar content, recordings of maybe customer testimonials, events that you're having, any type of recording that you have, Casted can take in, and we do a couple of amazing things. One, our AI starts to understand how you, especially your experts who you've recorded, think, talk by analyzing your language. And we're able to develop an idea of what you as a team likes to promote to your audience. Because we can share moments from longer videos, we help you automate a lot of this process. So, Cast's Copilot features allow you to upload a long form piece of content and find the most valuable moments from it, even if you don't want to sit through the whole hour of recording. So, talking about automation and saving time, that's what Copilot is there to do. It's also designed to look through where you're going to distribute your content to. So each algorithm requires different focus. And so our Copilot features are trained to help align your message to maximize its potential on each channel. So YouTube Shorts have a slightly different need than LinkedIn, and being able to bias your titles in that direction can help create an opportunity for them to be seen more, which is great. At the end of the day, you're packaging your authentic face into a clip, or whatever you have authentically to say. And that is ultimately what the audience is going to connect with. But this gives you the opportunity for more people to see it and therefore connect with it. One last thing that Copilot does is it learns based on performance. So as people engage with your content, we'll be able to recommend better and better clips for you. So we'll say usually when you talk about these topics, they perform quite well, especially when you use these topics in certain channels. And that is what Copilot is all designed to do, is to actually work with you in your business and context. It was important for us, Lindsay and I, she talked about it at the beginning of the call. It was really important for us to not create AI that plugs into ChatGPT and spits out a blog post based on your video. You could do that. You can copy the transcripts, take it wherever you need it to go. But what we thought was, how do we sit alongside of our marketers and help them get more? And some of the questions that a lot of our customers have, and a lot of the marketers that we work with have, is, I don't understand how the computer algorithm works. Well, I'll tell you who does, another computer. We can train our models based on what performs well to be able to help you with that. So we looked at some of the problems that marketers were having, and we designed AI to help solve those problems rather than taking the seat on the driver's wheel on creating the creative part of it. We thought, how do we help marketers maximize their opportunity with that creative content?
Yeah. I
So, I'll give kind of a couple thoughts here, but Lindsay, I'm really curious some of your thoughts as well. Um, some of the guardrails that we recommend, not just with casted software, but with all software. So we definitely designed with these principles in mind. But when you're shopping for AI tools, especially in the coming years, some things that we suggest to look out for are any kind of automations that will publish content without your review. There are a couple really important reasons for this from a technical standpoint. So, one, many models are not safeguarded the way that you think they are, and their moderation is not quite up to speed yet. So, purely from a PR perspective, please don't just let AI auto-publish. But there's also more reasons than that. Um, all of you are probably also saying, I don't know that I want AI publishing because maybe it doesn't sound like me. Maybe it doesn't create the right authentic experience, doesn't actually create value for my end customer. So definitely make sure whatever tools you're looking at, it had some kind of review process for you as marketers. I'll give you one better there, which is especially look for tools where you get the opportunity to provide feedback in the user interface where you can say, this matches my brand or my expectation, or this does not, or refine. Now, when you're buying the software, make sure you grill the other company and you say, does clicking that button actually tune the model, or is it just there for flavor? Or is it just there to reprompt the model? That is a key difference that you'll see coming in the future. Is really great tool sets that will help your business are ones that train and adapt to you and your style and your business's unique needs, and simply reprompting an existing LLM with no changes is going to create less value for you over time. Um, as Lindsay's mentioned a lot, we use tools every day in our team to brainstorm, to help us write things, to help us edit things, help us reword things. That's not going to go away. And we definitely don't want to encourage you to not do that. But as we've been harping on this entire webinar, make sure that your creativity is at the center. At the end of the day, it's the thing that can't be replaced. At the end of the day, it's the things that leadership will really want to see out of their marketing teams. And hopefully AI is giving you more and more time to spend time being creative. And as Lindsay mentioned, definitely avoid adding to the noise where AI is messaging on comments and so forth. So um, a great filter, again, just to kind of reiterate, is think about who you're talking to. Think about the person on the other end. There was a really great meme that I saw that was like, I'm going to give an AI a couple bullet points of what I want to include in an email, and I'll let the AI expand those bullet points into a full email. That email gets sent to someone else who says, hey, AI, can you reduce this long email into a couple of bullet points? Why did we do that? Why? Why not just be concise with the person on the other line who wants it concise? So think about, if you were sitting in their seats, use one amazing power that you have as a human, empathy, and imagine what their experience is going to be like on the other end and how you can benefit them as a person. Our job as marketers is to create value for the people who are consuming our content. And the more that you can do that, the more that this will become less of a problem for you. So again, how you use AI, put these filters on, but also as you're shopping for vendors and as you're integrating AI into the tool sets that you use, look out for these warning signs. If there's any of these kind of three pieces, you should be a little more skeptical of the software that's offering them to you.
Yeah. I think again, just in summary, it should be helping you be more human and more creative. That looks different for all of us in our different roles and our different companies. It shouldn't be doing that for you. It should be taking other things off your plate or inspiring you so that you can cultivate relationships, be more creative, establish more connections. Um, um, so from this flip side, let's talk about what it should do. And Adam and I are going to talk through some of these too. So again, kind of in that breath is it's like, okay, well, I'm getting so much pressure. I mean, whose banner for last year and kind of also into this year is do more with less. Like whether you like it or not, so many marketers are still very, very much under that pressure. And so it's like, okay, well, I'm under pressure. Like I have these KPIs. I have to do all these things. I have to create all this stuff. Um, think, try if you can to think a little bit differently to say, okay, my content copilot, it's copilot. It is not a replacement. I'm not going to write a blog post and it's going to write a blog post. It's going to give me inspiration. It's going to help make sure that any of the things that I do create are that much more effective. It's going to um, help point me in the right direction so that the topics and the themes and the data that I use in all of my interactions, in all of my creations are that much more on point, right? So think along the lines of um, administrative work, scheduling, looking for efficiencies in your day, looking for opportunities with keywords and topics, and analyzing the data for you to understand what's working and what's not so that you can use your brain to be more creative. Tagging and cataloging content. My word, if I had if I had my time and my team's various teams' times over the last 10 years back for all of the time spent just categorizing and cataloging and indexing libraries of content. And as an intern, the days and days and days I spent doing various projects along these lines, that is a perfect job for AI, right? So if you've got a huge library of content, get it transcribed and start to let AI do that. Catalog it, look for opportunities to use content that you already have, right? Titles, SEO optimized metadata and descriptions, 100% all day long. Because you know why? That is tactical, technical, transactional content. Absolutely can and be should created and optimized by AI, 100%. And lastly, suggestions. Adam talked about brainstorming. Um, Suggestions, inspiration. Let it look at the data. Let it look at trends. Let it suggest, like, hey, you seem to have a lot of content on this, or the world is looking for a lot of content on this. There seems to be some intent data among your ICP in this area, and you have a very large gap on that. Seems like that would be a good area to create some content. These are the kinds of things that should help you be much more creative and effective as a marketer and therefore establish real meaningful relationships with your audience. All right. So we saved some time for questions. Here are some, and I know Mike is like locked and loaded and ready to get through some questions too. Um, do we want to go through some of these here, or Mike, do you want to start firing away and start a conversation?
Yeah, Lindsay, why don't you kick us off with a couple of the ones you've got here? Because I think they're reflecting some of the concerns people are having or questions people do have. And we've got a couple in the chat I can bring up. And, I've got a couple of my own as well. So I'd love to ask those.
Got it. Okay. Let's see. I want to ask Adam one of these, and then maybe he can ask me one that he wants to. So,
Sure.
um, I think like this one here. What if I don't have a ton of historical data? Like I've talked about that. We've actually talked about that with some of our customers. Like, what if they're just getting started with video or just getting started with podcasting, and they want to leverage AI. So, what suggestions do you have there? How would you respond?
I would actually be quite surprised for any brand today that doesn't have more content than they think they do. So, one thing to think about is, are there other formats? Are there other sources? Are there other places of content that you probably haven't considered? I will answer this legit as well, but one thing I want to plug here is that many of us have been doing webinars for a very, very long time and probably have hundreds of hours of extremely valuable content that unfortunately is extremely hard to search through.
Hmm.
And shameless plug of Casted, one thing that we can do extremely well for you is ingest all of your video content, your entire video library, and make it highly indexed, searched, categorized, and tagged. And the AI does an incredible job of looking through that content and helping you surface moments that would be valuable. Now, what's cool about that is then you have training data. For brands that are legitimately starting fresh, folks that maybe they are a startup, maybe they are spinning up a new product or new brand, a new product line, and don't want to use existing content sources. One of the things that Lindsay and I, who are quite biased for sure, believe that you should do is start a podcast right away. If you and your co founder or you and some experts can routinely get on a podcast together and discuss some key topics in your field, what makes you special, bring your perspective, your expertise, your point of view onto a topic routinely. Once a week is fine, every other week is fine. Before you know it, within a handful of months, you will have a massive library of extremely rich content that can be used to help fine tune models to your perspective. Um, Another way to kind of think about this use case is that as organizations grow, you have a separation between the folks who are experts, the folks with the technical expertise, the folks with the really great opinions, often your CMOs, your executive leadership who are on stages sharing really great ideas at events. And then the rest of the marketing team can often be hired. Many times they're younger, many times they are not the expert, and yet they're being asked to create content from the perspective of their experts in their industry. And this is
I'm
what
there.
AI can be so powerful at. One thing that we do at Casted genuinely, Lindsay has so many talks and podcasts that she's recorded with so many wonderful experts. And rather than our marketing team trying to become the expert and catch up with her decades of experience, what we do instead is take all of those recordings and use it to power topics for blog posts, take real quotes, expand on thoughts and ideas based on her expertise. So it's a really powerful system. That's why we believe in record everything, and then use that content to repurpose and fuel and power your campaigns and your content libraries.
I actually wanted to connect a dot here that I've kind of seen being mentioned time and time again in what you've been talking about, and I think might address also some of the comments we've gotten. When I hear you say everything you just said, I think people would be wise to broaden their horizons about what becomes possible with AI and
Yeah,
content. So
right.
when we said at the beginning, 33 hours or whatever it was is spent creating content. Has anyone asked, like, is that the right content you should be spending
Yeah.
time on? Right. So if we eliminate, let's just say for purpose of argument, we eliminate half that using AI tools. Okay, I'm sure in some places that's going to lead to a reduction in the amount of people you need if you continue to follow that strategy. But like, have you started the podcast? How do all your leaders have their own podcasts that they're generating? Like, there's no time for that usually. That's the problem, right? So if
Hmm.
you're actually freeing yourself up on these kind of like blocking and tackling activities that you are continually having to do, I actually think this becomes a huge growth opportunity. It's someone, again, I'm super biased as the co-host of a podcast that has literally changed our business that we did
Yeah.
not have time for
Hmm.
before. I don't know. I mean, I'm not putting on just rose-colored glasses here, but I think you also have to consider some of the upside. Is
A
all I
hundred
would say
percent.
with some of this.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think too, I mean, I talk a lot about what I call amplified marketing, right? It's also different variations have been called waterfall marketing or straight up repurposing. And to me, here's how I think you should do it. You should have at least a podcast or video series, right? So you have some of the experts in your company talking to some of the experts in your space, right? As simple as that. You do at least one show, maybe it's multiple, and you have humans talking to humans, right? You can get creative about what that looks like with the format. And I mean, that's a whole other podcast in and of itself. But like, you have humans talking to humans that are unlocking actual original content because they're brand new thoughts being spoken into the world for the first time. You literally start there. That is step one. And then from there, everything else comes from it. So you wring out that content, it's transcribed, it's indexed, it's searchable, and then you can leverage what exists now and is only going to become more and more available and eventually ubiquitous is the ability to take that conversation, pull out the most important bits of information. Right now, where I mean, Casta does this, and it's going to get more and more sophisticated as time goes by, but like there's suggested clips. And eventually those suggested clips are going to be suggested clips based on your audience, your past performance, intent data, what the market is talking about. Like it's going to get more and more sophisticated where you can just focus on having the conversations, having the right conversations between the right people. And I don't know about you, but like as a 2-decade marketer, that's exciting. Like connect, even if it's whether it's me having the conversations or I go, back several years and I'm teeing up the conversations between my CMO and, the CEO of one of our customers. That's the fun stuff, right? And being able to be that connective tissue between your brand and your audience and then leverage the AI and other tech that is yet to emerge to do more with it, to wring it out, to use it in many, many other ways. Because Mike, you're so right. I mean, how many hours, apparently 33, have been spent like week after week, year after year, writing the blog post that based on some rabbit hole of keyword research data that you spent way too long doing might suggest you should write. And it's just, and then it flops and then you write another one. And yeah, we're going to get more effective, which is going to allow us to be more creative because our creativity is going to be fueled in such a way that makes it more relevant.
I love that. That just makes me, that's the part that just geeks me out, makes me super
Right?
excited about what's coming, even though I realize there's a lot of trepidation and questions and fear. I had one question from the audience that I wanted to ask here to either Adam or Lindsay. How is Casted thinking about any of the range of like IP issues and legal stuff that we need? Obviously, none of us are lawyers here, but how are you thinking about that when it comes to content creation? Does that come up among your customers at all? Questions about that?
Um, so are you asking like, does Casted blend content between our customers?
No, I think it's more about the fact that large language models, for instance, have perhaps been, we've seen some lawsuits being trained by copywritten material.
That's
So
right. Right.
obviously there's no legal issue here at all with what Casted does, but just how do you think about how brands have to navigate that issue generally?
Yeah, I think, that's kind of what I lightly touched on earlier on things to look out for around like auto publishing for that exact reason. Um, any full content piece that is created from an AI should absolutely have some degree of skepticism. Um, we're all navigating this together, especially when it comes to imagery and in the future video. There's a lot of risks to be had around IP, copyright, just straight up ethics on what's coming out of these machines. And that's why we're such big believers in we really believe in video and natural human recorded this is not an expensive setup, right? It's not this expensive to set up a video capturing in 2024. So one thing that we believe is like really authentic inputs can really help create the AI create more authentic and less problematic outputs. So I personally trust a prompt or a model that is based on or trained by my content. So in Casted, we fine tune our writing to be based on our existing content sources. That helps it bias and sound more like us, which is just good stuff. But also, if it's going to copy someone, hopefully it's copying us rather than plagiarizing some potentially other brands and stuff like that. But yeah, you're right. There's a huge risk here. I think developing your entire strategy around it is probably a little risky until we see how some of these um, things play out in the broader market.
Yeah, for sure. And that's kind of what we're seeing too, is just definitely anytime AI is involved, brands just have to get, their legal departments and advisors involved. And that's kind of a standard for any type of new technology, though there's a lot of question marks out there. I'm curious for both of you, just because there's a bunch of questions, comments in the chat about how people are using certain tools, what they're using them for. This is always in every talk I give, the most popular subject is use cases. For each of you, just in your own work or with your customers, what are some of your favorite use cases for AI that you find the most value in today? Maybe Lindsay, let's start with you.
Let's see. It probably doesn't come as a surprise. Like, I am holding out on things that replace my any creations, right? So, I do love some of the things that, I mean, this is a shameless plug, but also I'm excited about it. Some of the things we have in Casted as far as like recommended clips and supportive search, and so I think things that help me do more with what I have, right? Generally speaking, um, where I personally leverage AI the most is in scheduling. That is the bane of my existence as a founder. Scheduling is tough. It's tricky. And bring into play the fact that I have 3 children. Um, there's a lot, and so I think I freed up the most amount of time with actually something that Adam showed me, which is called AI, that helps protect my time
Hmm.
and also be more available to those that need time with me. That's again going back to everything that we talked about. That frees me up so that I can be more available to the people in my life, um, and spend more time thinking and creating and connecting, and not moving meetings around and rescheduling and finding times and sending a list of 10 bullet point options of, will this time work for you? So
Hmm. Yeah,
I love that. Adam, how about
yeah,
you?
yeah. Definitely +1 on Reclaim if you haven't checked it out. It's great. It's Calendar Lee on steroids, which is really powerful.
you need to give us an
Um,
affiliate link. I think we've meant to use
I
for free.
know.
that
I know. I think I
every
could
AI thing that
retire
we've
with how
done.
much I plug them.
Seriously.
Yeah, for me, I work a lot with customers, and as a product leader, I do a lot of product interviews where I'll talk to users, try to get to understand them and understand their pain points. And so I really enjoy recording my calls with in those conversations, and then I end up using AI in a number of ways to extract data from it. So I tend to take light notes on the side, but I find being able to focus on my guest and my conversation allows me to be um, to extract better information from them rather than taking notes. And so having the AI come back and offer notes is usually okay, but what I end up doing quite a lot is taking the full transcript and then plugging that into an AI where I can ask questions. So I usually, especially in the product world, there are a couple of things that products folks look for in an interview. Um, I start that out as an outline of like, what do I want to know?
Mm,
And being able to search through one conversation or sometimes several conversations with one prompt is a really powerful way to extract insights. With some of the features we develop, I could ask things like, do marketers do this? And search and it's like, yep, here's a bunch of examples where the person you interviewed talked about actually doing it.
mm.
And so it's a really powerful tool to go back into conversations because humans' memory is not perfect. Mine certainly is below average than most people. But an AI can really help extract some of that so you don't have to have that perfect memory.
That's such a cool idea. Yeah, I think that's another example that it's you really want to broaden your horizons about what's possible. It's like I can't count the amount of times already where whether I'm writing something, preparing for something, thinking through something, because I'm able to like have AI ingest much more content about it that I can kind of copy and paste, my outputs are so much better. Like I'm getting smarter and better
That's right.
using the tool. And it's just like I couldn't do it before. What I would have done is like in a hurry, try to read a couple quick things to like prepare or like
Yeah.
research or like understand something and like hope that I was moving fast enough. Now it feels like I actually have time to understand some of these
Yeah,
things.
for
So
sure.
all right. So as we get towards the end here, I want to tee up maybe one, maybe two more questions, depending on how much time we have. But this one is a good question in terms, it sounds like you all are talking about, especially using Casted, it's like as humans, we are authentically filming our own video. We're not using AI, such as something like a Synthesia, right, to create AI generated video. Is that correct?
Right.
100%. Yes,
Okay.
please.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Um, okay, so I'm also curious. I think I want to just end here and ask each of you, because everyone here is at different levels of knowledge and comfort with AI. There's a lot of different specific questions. For each of you, Lindsay and Adam, like what is one piece of advice you would find helpful or you have found helpful or you give to marketers, business people who are trying to get started or further their experimentation or adoption of AI tools
Mm.
like Casted?
I would say, don't feel like you need to start with what's scariest. Like, if you're afraid that some part of your job is at risk or that, all creativity will be lost in the world, like, don't start there. Start with what you hate. Start with, for me, it was all of the scheduling woes, or, preparing for interviews or, summarizing a meeting or preparing an agenda for an upcoming meeting. Like, if there are areas of your life that you're like, oh, if I just get this off my plate, then I could do more of this. Start there and just poke around and time block it. No one has time to spend on, frankly, when Adam told me about Reclaim.ai, I literally said to you, I don't have time for this. And so I think I had like 10 minutes. And so I spent 10 minutes on it. And I was like, oh, this could really be helpful. So time block it and start with the bane of your existence.
I love that.
Yeah. That's really good, Lindsay. I think I want to heartily plus one that because that's a lot about how I think about looking for new tool sets. As a technology leader, I have developers that work for me, and developers are uh notorious for wanting to try the newest framework, the newest thing, and it doesn't always quite move the needle forward, does it? And sometimes it can move the needle backwards, as far as progress goes. But I would say, you know, one thing that I find really cool about this whole new world is the conversations that are coming up around it. It is so existential that it's a conversation that you can have with your colleagues over a beer and kind of let your imagination go into dark places. but it's also a conversation you could have with your colleagues over coffee and get really inspired. And because of that, I would encourage everybody to kind of do what you're doing in the chat. Ask that same question to everyone else. What are you using? What is your workflow like? What has changed since last year or the year before? The proliferation of tools is only going to increase as the tool sets get easier for developers to use and more software can be built around it. So I encourage you to work with real humans and find out what's really helping them rather than what the AI is writing about uh, tool sets that are working well. But I would also say um, it's okay to go slow with real world stuff, and just remember that the thing that you love to do it slow and continue enjoying it.
I love that. There couldn't be a better way to wrap this up. Lindsay, Adam, thank you so much. Everyone, thank you so much for your time today and your attention. We really appreciate it. Go check out casted.us and see what they're up to there. I think if you do anything related to video, it's well worth checking out. And until next time, I hope everyone has a great rest of their day. Lindsay and Adam, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Have a good one, everyone.